It may be a surprise to a lot of people, but many of the recipes, food types, kitchen conventions, products and even meal formats we take for granted today were novelties brought about by the Victorians. The Victorian era was noted for its resourcefulness and creativity in the kitchen, similar to the beauty standards that women of the time attempted to meet to the best of their abilities. The food accessible to the average Victorian may not appear pleasant to those living in the 21st century, yet it was sufficient to allow people to survive in the 19th century. Join us today as we look at what people ate to survive in the Victorian era. The traditional English breakfast. The traditional English breakfast, which typically consists of fried eggs, bacon, baked beans, grilled tomatoes, and grilled mushrooms, is still a popular meal. Eggs and beef were expensive enough that only the very wealthy could afford to have them for breakfast in past centuries. This changed over the course of the 19th century, when a higher quality of living was achieved by the vast majority of the world's population. By the end of the Victorian era, even members of the working class had the time and the means to take pleasure in a more lavish breakfast. Marrow toast. During the Victorian era, bone marrow was a delicacy that enjoyed a fair amount of popularity. It was a nutrient-dense source of energy for the Victorians, despite its high fat and calorie content. It was reported that Queen Victoria consumed bone marrow on a daily basis. Marrow toast was something that her former cook Charles Francatelli had prepared for her. On toast, he spreads bone marrow that has been seasoned with parsley and lemon juice, as well as other ingredients. Beer. During the Victorian era, beer was one of the drinks that was consumed the most frequently. By the year 1865, brewers in the United Kingdom produced 25 million barrels of beer annually. Beer of the Victorian era typically had less than 3% alcohol, despite the fact that it was taken in large quantities. In the Victorian era, when people were looking for a way to quench their thirst, drinking beer was considered to be the more sanitary option than drinking water. This was especially true in densely populated cities like London, where the water supply was more likely to become tainted with human waste. On both sides of the Atlantic in the 18th and early 19th centuries, turtle soup was a dish that was considered to be among the most popular of its day. However, the most important component, which was turtle meat, was difficult to obtain and quite pricey to purchase. Cooks in the Victorian era were inventive, so they developed their own version of the popular sans turtle. It's possible to make a version of mock turtle soup with various kinds of meat, such as calf's head. Royal Sovereign strawberry. As enthusiastic horticulturists, Victorians liked to tinker with and create their own varieties of fruit and vegetables. One of the most successful fruits to emerge in the late Victorian period was the Royal Sovereign strawberry. Developed by Thomas Laxton in 1892, it was luscious and tasty. The strawberry was such a hit that Country Life Illustrated declared in 1899 that it was one of the finest strawberries ever raised. Cereal. The 19th century saw the birth of the most popular breakfast item, cereal. American entrepreneurs like Sylvester Graham developed breakfast cereals to provide a healthy food. Some took it even further. John Kellogg developed cornflakes as a bland food to curb people's sexual impulses. Though processed breakfast cereal gained traction in mid-century America, Britons didn't enjoy prepared cereal until the beginning of the 20th century. Instead, British Victorians generally ate gruel, oats, and porridge. Cheap meat. By the middle of the era, most Victorians consumed some kind of meat during the week. Not every cut or type of meat was the same though. Wealthier Victorians enjoyed the best pieces of succulent meats, while their poor counterparts had to make do with cheaper cuts. Butchers sold most parts of the animal, making everything from the head to hoof available for purchase. A budget-conscious Victorian could buy a sheep's head for 3 pennies, or £2.50 in 2016. Meddlers. Victorians were keen gardeners, and their enthusiasm meant they often sampled the fruits of their labours. The medlar, an aggressively hard fruit, wouldn't be an obvious choice for a meal. but Victorians gave it a go by letting it slightly rot. This softened the fruit, thereby making it edible. Softened Meddlers could be eaten as is, but many Victorians opted to turn it into Meddler cheese or jelly. Thank you for watching. If you find this video interesting, please support our channel by subscribing.